All right, welcome everybody to yet another evening of leadership class. All right, I hope everybody's excited. Tonight we're going to be continuing with John Maxwell's Everybody Communicates, If You Connect, looking at session number 7 and session number 8. Session number 7 and session number 8. I want to welcome all of you, both who are here today and who are joining us online. I'm super excited about another night and opportunity to grow. I hope that you're excited as well. So let's open up with a word of prayer and then we're going to get started. Father God, we just thank you for this day. Thank you for watching over us and keeping us. We thank you for every person who made it out, those yet making their way out. We thank you for just another opportunity to learn about leadership. We know that your word gives us great examples, God, and we thank you for just the opportunity to take the calling on our life, to be salt in the earth, to be light in the earth, Lord God, and learn techniques and skills that help us enhance that role, that we might go out and perform admirably for the kingdom when we have the opportunities. Thank you for the ability to influence. Thank you for the ability to grow, and thank you for the ability to lead. And thank you for this time. We ask that you would just bless and sanctify it, cover us all. In Jesus' name we pray.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
All right. So super excited about being with you all again. We have talked so much in just a few months that we've been together. We have talked about leadership in general definitions. We've talked about ways to be better leaders. We've talked about quadrant 2 living. We've talked about stuff from John Maxwell and stuff from Stephen Covey and stuff from just a variety of different sources, and we've shared and grown together in our leadership journey. So tonight here we are still working through our book on Everyone Communicates, If You Connect by John Maxwell. So still working on this because the ability to connect is such an important skill. And I really do believe that it's a skill. And the reason that I think it's important that we consider it a skill is because ultimately, as a skill, it's something that we can work on. If we think of connecting as just a natural talent, either you have it or you don't, then you'll be less inclined to work on it. Whereas when we consider it a skill, then it's something that we can work on, that we can refine our technique, that we know different people are going to require different techniques in order for us to connect with them. So we still want to continue to work on that tonight. So tonight's session is entitled Connectors Do the Difficult Work of Keeping It Simple. Connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. Before we get into this, I want to share with you all a story that I heard this week. It was not a fictional account, but it was very enlightening to me about the effects of leadership. So I rolled into one of the schools that I work in, and I was talking to one of the teachers. That school had some turnover, where they now have a new principal who has come to take over. And one of the things that they remarked about was the energy the principal was bringing. Now, you would imagine that a principal brings energy no matter what. It's a new school year. Surely you're excited about the kids and stuff like that. And that wasn't necessarily what the person was commenting on. The person commented that the principal had already come to their classroom. Now, again, if you're new to somewhere, you probably would do this. But he remarked that when the old principal had been there for the 10 years that he had been at the school, the principal had never come to his classroom. Not one time, not before school started, not end of the year started, not at any point in time throughout his entire 10 years that he had been there. The principal had been there for several years before that, had never come down to his part of the school to see his kids, to say hello, to see how he was doing. When he would see the principal, he would either have sent him an email and be following up on him at like the cafeteria during like lunch duty when he was on duty or something to that effect. And it struck me as I was listening to him lament, of course, the past principal and, of course, share his excitement with the incoming principal, that the principal never connected with him. He never would have gotten to know who he was. He never would have gotten to know where he was from. He never would have gotten to know what his grandkids did or what his retirement plans were, any of those things, because he didn't connect.
Right.
And why would I want to spend time talking to you? Why would I want to communicate with you? Why would I want to be in participation with you if you and I have not connected?
Right.
And so it was not unheard of. We've heard of, all of us probably at different times, leadership experiences where the person doesn't come around, doesn't communicate, doesn't participate in the day-to-day work. They'd rather send you a memo and say, hey, be here at this time, or do this at this point, kind of thing like that. But it struck me because, again, you're talking about somebody who's in charge of, leading teachers, who are in turn in charge of educating our kids.
Right.
That's right.
And if you're in a position, wouldn't you want to know your people, and they know something about you, even if they don't want you don't want to know every little. Of course, you never want a person to know every little small detail, but you want to know. You want the person to know you, who's working for you, and you. My goodness, that's a sad commentary right there.
It is. But how many messages from leaders get lost in people not knowing the other person, therefore we don't connect?
Right.
And so that's really kind of the whole point in everything that we're doing here. And I wanted to share it because so many times we can get caught up in classes and get caught up in those things and lose the real world application of that. But after 10 years of working with the principal who he had been working with, he had nothing positive to say.
I guess he didn't, because he didn't know the nurses.
Right. And we could all say, well, people just, somebody's always going to have something negative to say. And I can see if there was some negative things to say. But when your biggest complaint is, he didn't know me, and I didn't know him, then you tell me right there how we were able to connect. And that's a huge indictment on the leader, and something that we as leaders should strive never to have somebody say about us, that we didn't connect with. And if you should find your message not getting across the way that you expect it to, it may have something to do with the fact that you're not connecting with your people the way that you thought you would. So just some things to keep in mind as we go forward, just to help to remind everybody of why we do what we do and where we're trying to go with this as we go forward. All right, so excited about tonight? Y'all excited?
Yes!
Woo! Sounds good. Let's get into it. Take it to the next level. Let's go. Session 7. Everybody communicates, you connects, and we're talking about connectors do the difficult work of keeping it simple. To be simple is to be great. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Anybody disagree with that comment? To be simple is to be great. How many people in the world think that simple is great? Are there people who think that you got to be like extra complicated?
Yes.
Yeah. You gotta say something that indicates that you have some degrees or are worthy of all the letters behind your name and stuff like that. You want people to have to pull out a dictionary to figure out, take notes when speaking, kind of thing like
what
that.
What that person said.
So often, I think people think, in order for me to prove something, I have to make it complicated. And the point of tonight's work is that we would look and discover the ways in which we can become simple. And to keep
I just want to comment
because
I remember going to an event, and the speaker got up to speak. And when he got up to speak, it was clear that he had no clue as to the audience that he was speaking to. He clearly didn't understand their education level, still didn't understand their heart, the things that they were passionate about. And every word, he was just speaking. Even when the people started clapping, it was just like, thank you. Clear that they didn't have a clue what he was saying.
Right.
And he didn't have a clue that they didn't have a clue. Because they were just, yay. And I mean, it was really sad. And I come back and was like, they don't know what he's talking about.
Right.
I heard half of the words, not even a half of the words that he's saying. They don't know. And he
was the chief speaker.
He was the keynote speaker, and he was totally disconnected from totally disconnected.
Caveat on what she was saying. You need to know your audience, whomever your group or whatever, because if you don't, you can lose it.
Right.
And keeping it simple. I mean, say for instance you are with this group right now. I mean, why you want to use a whole lot of big words when half of us don't mean with me, half of us don't know, vice versa. I never put it, it's in it. But really true, you do need to keep it where speaking, it doesn't matter if you've got a doctor's degree. If you're speaking to a group of senior citizens, you don't need that doctor's degree to speak to senior citizens because half of them have forgotten or whatever else.
And we're not talking about dumbing down your message.
Right.
We're not talking about that at all. But speaking with such, the Bible says, the simplicity of the gospel.
Right, exactly.
Just making that clarity, making that connection to where we.
Okay, all right, good stuff. I like it. You got some passion about this. Let's keep going. My criteria for good material. So when I'm getting ready to share my message, when I'm getting ready to expound to people, I'm thinking about my vision, right? Stephen Covey says, start with the end in mind. So I've begun as a leader to think about where I want to take my people. What is it that we're attempting to get accomplished? Now I have to communicate that. As I attempt to connect through my communication, he says, my criteria for good material, number one, humor. Humor. Something that will make people laugh. It's always good to have something that makes people laugh. Why? What is it about laughter that is good? But some people, give me some examples.
That's medicine.
Okay, laughter is the best medicine. Yep, definitely.
And then it can loosen you up. Sometimes
Relaxes you.
it relaxes.
Makes you more open.
Right, relaxes, and it works for both the audience and the speaker.
Absolutely.
Right? If you can get your audience laughing, you feel better. You're like, oh, they think I'm funny, which is good, or I guess maybe it could be bad. If you're like, I was trying to be serious, right? But nonetheless, when people laugh, they relax, they loosen up,
Right.
everybody feels good, hopefully, about where we're getting ready
And
to
then
go.
I think too, it can, person, once you loosen up, you become more attentive to
Right.
what the person has to say.
Exactly, because you kind of decided at that point, they're worth my attention. Right?
Exactly.
I can listen to this person because they're not just going to be dry and boring, and
Exactly.
they got something going. So, okay. Number two, heart. Something that will captivate people's emotions. Heart. Something that will captivate people's emotions. Now, why is emotions important? Anybody know?
Because like you say, they might be passionate about the topic you're talking about.
Right?
You
Okay.
don't want somebody that's not really interested, and that's where you got to know your audience.
Right?
So,
Okay.
you know.
Okay.
And that's how we respond too. We respond from the heart. We respond to, what excites us, what makes us passionate, what stirs us.
Right, okay. All right, and Mark Gungor, who's the person who deals with relationships, one of the relationship experts, he says that an emotion tied to a lesson is something you remember forever. And so one of the reasons why women, he suggests, tend to remember all the things that happen is because it's all tied to emotions. This is what he talks about. He says this in the Women's Brains, Men Brain series. But it's so true. So if I can take what I'm passionate about, which was a beautiful word, and translate it into something that touches you, then you're going to be passionate about it. But you're also going to remember it. And later when people say, well, what'd you learn? Or what'd you remember? What's the vision? You're going to remember the thing that most touched you. So even when bringing a new idea, shifting a thought process, working forward from ways we've always done things to ways I want to do things, it's very important that I get everybody, or at least as many members of the audience's passion into my vision. I bring as much as possible, because every single one of them who says, oh yeah, that's me, oh yeah, that's me, oh yeah, that's me, now has a piece of it. Something, but I might not buy into the whole thing, but if I know that you touched a piece of it, now my message resonates, right? So if I got you laughing, and I got you like, okay, yeah, that's actually exactly what, now we're working somewhere. All right, so number 3, hope. Something that will inspire people. Hope. Something that will inspire people. Why is that important?
It keeps you looking forward.
Okay.
It makes you positive. It gives you a positive.
Nobody likes a message where it's just all dreary and dry, right? Nobody likes a doom and gloom, right, all the time. I want something that inspires me to be better. I think, generally speaking, people will look to you or are looking to you because they are looking for what? Motivation, right? They're looking for inspiration, right? They're looking for somebody who says, hey, we can go from here to here. We can elevate ourselves. I've been there already. I want you to come with me. I'm going to guide you, right? And Maxwell talks about this. He says if you're at the mountain by yourself, don't just stand on the mountain by yourself and say, hey, come on. Go back and get the people. And then say, come on, together we can. Well, that's hope.
And you give
Go
them
ahead.
a desire too. I mean, okay, you build them up and all, you think, and it gives them a desire to want to go on because you brought them up, instilling in them something to look forward to.
Exactly. And that's important. Instilling in them something to look forward to is important because that's what I'm going to think about. That's what's going to drive me. We all know that there are times when things don't go the way that you expect them to. Right? There are times when things may not work out the way, where we're inevitably going to face setbacks. We've talked about it before. For example, you might have a budget, and then your budget gets cut in half. And you have to come to your people and say to them, hey, we don't quite have what we thought we were going to have. If I have some kind of hope that I've inspired them with, that we can overcome obstacles, if I tie that into a part of my vision, inevitably this is coming, but that's expected. This helps us grow. Then I approach it from that mindset. So I want to make sure that I have that too. Finally, help. Help. Something that will help people in some tangible way. Something that will help people in some tangible way. Now, understand that he says my criteria for good material. So this is when he's writing, when he's putting together things that he knows are going to connect, which implies that he takes time before he delivers. Right? That there's some time spent in preparation before you decide, oh, let's just go with it. Let's make it happen. And if you're going to be a good leader who is able to articulate your vision and who is able to inspire people and who is able to help people, you have to have taken some time to get to know you.
That's right.
And to have gotten to know your material and have practiced it a time or two and listened to it. Maybe you spoke it into your phone because your phone had a recorder on it, and then you play it back and you listen to see, does this inspire me? Because all of these could be questions. Will that make somebody laugh? You know, I am kind of funny. Did that touch my heart? Yep, that's going to touch their heart. Did that give them inspiration? Are they going to be hopeful when they finish it? Is this going to help somebody? How can we show that it helps somebody? So all those are important things when we're talking about connecting with people. And we're talking about using either material externally or writing and developing our own material.
And that comes out to me, if you haven't studied, went over and studied and know what you're doing, if you sort of dull in a way and uninterested.
Exactly.
And it really, people, that can turn a person off quicker than anything.
Right.
Because you can tell. I mean, actually, you can tell when a person is just talking and don't really know what they are talking about.
Exactly. Exactly. And that increases even more when you're talking through different cultures. Right? So now he says here on the paperwork, after speaking to over 50 different countries in hundreds of venues, I developed a 3S strategy. But not only do we develop that from talking in different cultures, think about it here in America. Right? We call ourselves a melting pot. Right? There are lots of different people. So you might lead a multicultural group. You might lead multicultural in race. You might lead multicultural in age. You might lead multicultural in gender. There's a lot of different, you might have all the same people who are the same age, the same background, but if half of them come from up north and half of them come from down south, that's still multicultural. There's still going to be some crazy dynamics that you may only be able to connect with half the group. Exactly, unless you're intentional. So how do we do with that? He says 3 S's. Number 1, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Number 2, say it slowly. Say it slowly. Now here in the South, we might argue that that's just something that's natural. And up north, they might be like, please no. Don't say it any more slowly. Please don't. Alright, and number 3, have a smile. Have a smile. Okay, so why is this important? I'm going to read a couple things from the book here. It says, there's interesting signs in English that have been observed in various parts of the world. All right, some interesting signs in English that have been observed in various parts of the world. So, a dry cleaner in Bangkok. Drop your trousers here for best results. It's a little bit different. Right? All right, hotel brochure in Italy. This hotel is renowned for its peace and solitude. In fact, crowds from all over the world flock here to enjoy its solitude. Might not go there, right?
Too much.
Athens, a hotel in Athens. Visitors are expected to complain at the office between the hours of 9 and 11 a.m. daily.
Oh, wow.
In a Copenhagen airline ticket office, we take your bags and send them in all directions. In an Acapulco hotel, this is the last one, the manager has personally passed all the water served here.
What?
Personally
The
passed all the
manager has
water.
personally passed all the water served here.
I'm thirsty.
Okay? So clearly it can be easy, right, to lose people in the cultural backgrounds and translation. So that's why he says keep it simple, say it slowly, and have a smile. It's important that we make our message appropriate for what, and part of that also is knowing what's really important. When we begin to talk about speaking and communicating, which of course we're talking even more about connecting, what we're really saying is get to the point, right? Don't spend half an hour telling me what you could have told me in 10 minutes. Now, don't get me wrong. If you got a half an hour and you can expound upon it and you want to lay out goals and stuff like that, by all means. But always be able to, well, you don't have half an hour now. You got 15 minutes. Can you still give me the meat and potatoes? Can you still keep it simple and get me excited and get me motivated in the shortened amount of time?
And you know, it's so funny that you said it because it's something Mother Perkins say all the time.
I don't
She
know
said,
why
I
that
admire a person who can say a little, who can say a lot in a few words. She said that, so that's so
Exactly.
remind me.
Exactly.
And that was all about I got to
Lot
too,
in a
thank
few
God I
words.
thought about her myself.
And that's so important. And sometimes it seems difficult, right? Where you want to just get on to the point already. So we want to make sure that we are good at that. If somebody has something to ask you afterwards, right, that's better than if they're like, oh my gosh, I never want to hear you speak. You want to be the one people come up and ask. All right, so how do we make that happen? Simplicity, art of simplicity. Talk to people, number one, not above them. Talk to people, not above them. And number two, get to the point. Get to the point. We hit this kind of early in the beginning where we talked about, you know, what happens when you're just talking over people, using all your big words and stuff, not knowing your audience. We want to communicate with people. We want to make sure that they have clarity, that they are fully understanding what it is that we're talking about, that we're on the same line together. We want to talk to the people. We don't just want to talk down to them. And people know it. Right? Like when if somebody talks down to you, don't you just kind of feel a certain way? You just kind of like turn away from them, you close off. I don't have to take this. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes I say sometimes that person talking to me like I'm stupid.
Right, exactly. Number two, again, get to the point. We don't want to be just spending a lot of time just talking about the same thing or talking around in circles because we didn't do a good job of figuring out. Right, exactly. So when connectors get to the point before listeners start asking, what's the point?
Right.
When the person asking for a recommendation isn't someone they want to endorse, their responses can be very creative. So here are a few along with their quote-unquote real meanings selected for the book Lexicon of Intentionally Ambiguous Recommendations by Robert Thornton. We're at the top, page 7. All right, recommendations. She was always high, in my opinion. She was always high, in my opinion. Meaning, she was often seen smoking a joint. Recommendation, while he worked with us, he was given numerous citations, meaning he was arrested many times. This is terrible. Okay. Recommendation, I would say that his real talent is getting wasted at his current job, meaning he gets bombed regularly. You simply won't believe this woman's credentials. She faked most of her resume. He would always ask if there was anything he could do. We were always wondering too. You will never catch him asleep on the job. He's too crafty to get caught. He doesn't know the meaning of the word quit. He can't spell it either. He can't spell it either. So his whole point of showing this is that he's saying everybody likes clarity. And this is not clear. Right? Because if you are writing this as a recommendation, but you mean the other, I never would have thought about this. I never would have thought, you know, oh, she was always high in my opinion. Yep, she was smoking joint. I just wouldn't have thought about that. That's the unclarity that we want to avoid when we're seeking to connect with people.
But I would have thought, what does he really mean though? She's always high in my opinion. What does that really mean?
Right.
I would have thought that. I would have, if I seen that in somebody's recommendation, I would say, well, what? High at what? High at what?
Right.
But then you always have people that are thinking negative.
Okay.
And they're going to think right away, high.
I would just be like, what does that mean?
And so, again, that's the whole point. We want to make sure that we communicate as clear as we can. And to get to it quickly. And to make sure that everybody's tracking. All right, number 3. When, again, talking about ways that we can communicate and connect and keep the simple, keep our message simple, say it over and over and over and over and over again. Anybody feel like it's a little bit too much?
Yes.
All right, so William H. Rassiter says the first time you say something is heard, the second time is recognized, and the third time is learned. So if that's true, then at a minimum we have to say anything that we think is important as leaders at least 3 times. Now, here's where it gets complicated. As soon as you say it to your group, right? That's 1 time. What happens if you're missing somebody? So then when that person comes and you say it again, now it's the second time to the group, except it's the first time for that person. So then if that person's there the next time and you say it, that's the second time for him. What happens if you're missing some people who were there the first time? So y'all is already like, now I'm giving it up. Right.
Yes, that's what video from. Hallelujah.
You have to be willing to say it over and over and over and over.
I think I would you tell that person that was late coming in, but we bring them up to date on what we've talked about?
Right. But okay, so that works in a small group setting, right? What happens when you're leading a bigger operation? Like, let's say you're the head of a church, right, or a ministry, and you're trying to give clear, what should be clear truth, right, from the word or from whatever it is that you're teaching, and then you got people coming in and you got people coming out. You got people coming in and you got people coming out. You got people who've been there for years, and then some people who left, and then some people who come back, and there's people who miss time, and you're like, I preached this sermon 5 times already. But you've only had it heard like twice at most by the people who you're preaching it to because of the turnover. So we have to be aware that even though we get tired of saying the same thing over and over and over again, your message may only be being heard for the first or second or even finally the third time. And he says over and over and over and over and over, and that's 5.
But you can't stand, you don't want to get to the point where it becomes mundane. Because you can show up turn me off if I've heard something 4 or 5 times and I'm like,
Okay, so let me ask this. You're an actor. You have to do a play. But not just one play, right? Because you do like a Broadway show, it's a series of plays, right? And you might do the same play for a whole year traveling around as a member of a troupe. What's the difference? It's the same lines over and over
Same
again.
line, but you're with a different group.
It is a different group,
You're not
but it's still the same lines over and over
but you're
again.
not playing to the same audience.
It's still the same
I
lines.
can't help that you're not playing to the same audience.
So, but if you're the person, so you're saying as long as every single time you're saying it to somebody new, you don't have a problem saying it again?
I would not if it was a different group each
But
time.
it's the same thing every single time. You gotta say the same thing.
So the point being that is not the point of having a problem with saying it over and over. It's just a point of having a problem with saying it over and over to the same
Same
people. Because then it's almost as if it's like, okay, what am I saying it for over and over? Because you didn't hear, you didn't listen, you didn't what? You know,
Right.
did I not connect?
Right.
You know,
And that's why they say it takes at least 3 times. So you know at a minimum, you probably need to say it at least 3 times. My whole thing is just that you're not gonna get the same people every single time.
I don't mind saying it 3 times. but after that, you might have a problem with it.
Yeah.
she'll stand up and be like,
And so it's a challenge.
nah, reach that again.
But sometimes, isn't it based on the fact is that, in my opinion, sometimes why you need to say it more than 3 times is because if somebody said they got it, then it should show up in their action. If their actions has not changed, then that tells me somewhere or another there's a disconnect. Maybe I do have to say the 4th or 5th time because apparently you keep doing the same old thing.
Right.
So what's going on?
And this is, go ahead. No,
And I was just gonna say, and for emphasis sake, sometimes.
Right.
You have to say something repetitively because you know, it helps you to retain that information. It's just like if you're doing maybe a scripture, you want a group to learn a scripture. We literally had that experience last week. She wanted us to learn what she said was the most challenging scripture in the Bible, and after I went over a few times, I was getting a little tight because I'm like, how can I get the scripture? I said, because usually I can write the scripture down, but she wasn't giving me a chance to write it down. I couldn't get in my lane. You know, she had me discombobulated doing like, unto this, and the manifold blessing of God, and dot, 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 and I'm like, unto that. I'm just like, you let me write this scripture down so I can... You know, and I was struggling the whole time. And then she made us go up to the front, and I was still struggling. And we done said it 25 times, y'all. In this room, we done said it at least 25 times. And I'm telling you, half the room didn't have it. We didn't have it. We didn't have it. It took me about 30 times. And if
My old pastor said that repetition was the essence of learning. Now, he was a doctor. And I can see sometimes you have to, you say it over and over again, and for some people, okay, the 3rd time is like, okay.
Right.
4th time is like, it's okay, you know. Everybody's different, everybody learns different.
Exactly. And part of that learning differently is your ability to connect. So when I acknowledge that somebody's still not getting the change, then I'm gonna take them aside and spend a little time. Or I'm gonna make it a point while I'm talking to everybody to make it a point to asking them specifically in one-on-one conversation, hey, you know, I see that you're not quite getting that, or is there anything that we need to do in order to help you gain that insight? We know, even the Bible talks about it with the parable of the seeds, right? That everybody receives it differently, depending on the heart, right? This is the soil that was good ground produced good fruit. So first time heard, planted deep, watered too easy. But some fell on rocky ground, and some got eaten by the birds. So we know that people hear at various things. We know repetition is a part of it. And I don't want to just get caught in like, you gonna say it 3 times to every single person no matter what, kind of thing like that. Or you gonna say it a 4th time or don't, whatever like that. But it is important that when we're trying to communicate to people, we understand we're gonna need to say it more than once. And that we shouldn't just give up as soon as somebody hears it the first time and I don't think they got it, or they haven't demonstrated they got it. Because repetition is a part of that. We can offset the seemingly doing the same thing over and over again by doing stuff like focusing on a big theme and then a smaller point, instead of just always saying the exact same words over and over again. You can also consider the approach. Who is the audience that you're intending it for? If my big theme is today going to be focused on sinners or people who are lost, is my big theme today going to be focused on kingdom building or people who are saved? Is my big theme today going to be focused on new believers or older believers? There are different ways that you can do it. So we're still getting across the same message, but it's coming across differently so that it doesn't seem like, oh, we've heard this before, oh, we know where this is going, kind of thing like that. Does that make kind of good sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Number 4, say it clearly. Say it clearly. Have an understanding so there won't be a misunderstanding. This is what Charles Blair says. Jack Welch, the former CEO of General Electric, pointed out, insecure managers create complexity. Frightened, nervous managers use thick, convoluted planning books and busy slides filled with everything they've known since childhood. All right, his point just simply being that when you aren't comfortable with your material and with what it is that you're saying, you won't be clear about it, right? Because if you are clear and then somebody asks you a question, you'll be like, I don't know. So I want to be comfortable with my vision. I want to be comfortable with my thought process. I want to be comfortable with the steps along the way to getting there. And I want to be comfortable enough with myself that if somebody comes along and has a better idea, I'm not threatened by it. Right? Because connecting also allows for people to say, hey, well, did you think about this? And you to be receptive to that and then allow for them to be developed as well in the leadership role. All right, number 5, say less. Say less. We kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, knowing your material well enough to say less without losing out on the key and central points. Key concept, the larger the group, the simpler the communication needs to be. And I think that's important. The larger the group, the simpler the communication needs to be. Because again, you may not know that audience. And you have to be cognizant, right, aware of the fact that that audience may be coming from a bunch of different backgrounds and have a bunch of different points where they're starting from. So keep it simple, say less. You don't have to say everything that you ever learned about the one subject like it's the last time that you're ever going to get a chance to speak. If you say less, then people will be more inclined to bring you back next time. All right, question, can people repeat to someone else what I have just said to them? Can people repeat to someone else? Y'all mentioned that a couple times, right? In the whole like, hey, well, you need to ask somebody or go back and watch the video, but I gotta repeat. But if you made it so complicated and that video is 2 hours long, nobody's gonna go back and watch it. Right? And the people around you who heard you the first time, what are they talking about? I'm just listening. I'm just here so I don't get fired. Right? Just here so I don't get fired. So let's make sure we keep it simple. All right. So
I just wanted to make one comment. So in order for you to say it clearly, you really have to understand it. Because if you don't understand what you're talking about, you can't clearly communicate something you don't really understand yourself.
Right.
You know, because in your mind, you're still trying to figure it out, work it out, and that comes across too.
It does. It does. So make sure you spend time, Again, this is Quadrant 2 Living, and we talked about this, so, shameless plug, go back and leave the Quadrant 2 Living video. But in the Quadrant 2 Living, we talk about taking the time to plan and to prepare and to work with your people so that they know how to deal with crises, so as to eliminate you having to spend your whole days fighting fires. So that only happens if you are intentional about building that kind of time into your schedule. Okay, good stuff. Great comments, everybody. Whoop, whoop. All right, let's hit it. Session 8. Connectors create an experience everyone enjoys. Connectors create an experience that everyone enjoy. There's really no point in you talking if I'm not going to enjoy it. I mean, I just don't want it. And we're polite people, generally speaking, so we'll sit there, but I'm not coming back. And nowadays, right, I'm definitely going to rate you bad, right? You definitely give me 1 star, maybe, and a bad review, a comment. I might have something to say. So make your thing an experience. All right, so how do we be interesting? How do we be interesting? Number 1, take responsibility for your listeners. Take responsibility for your listeners. What does that mean? Let's take responsibility for your listeners.
Take responsibility for your listeners is accept that if you're the speaker, that it's your job to engage your audience.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Definitely. So, how does that make you feel to the idea that you have a responsibility for your audience's response to you? Like, you can't be like, well, that was a bad audience. I ain't like them.
And see, for me, I want to connect. I want to know that you got it. I want to know that you understood what's going on. Because I went to a comic show, and the girl, when nobody laughed at her joke, she said, "Oh, something wrong with y'all, because up in so-and-so, they laughed at that." And we was like this.
Right, we definitely not laughing at that.
You know, we really, right, you may as well go off stage right now, because you are done. You know, and then you implied that this other audience was better than us,
right.
So you know
Right.
you were done. So I do think that that's important to you know, to take that responsibility, to really reach out. And if you start down a lane and it's really not working, you know, to be comfortable enough with your material that you can go another way, that you can share.
Exactly. And so important. And that's why he says here in general, there are no bad audiences, but only bad speakers. And so we don't like that because that puts it back on us. But it is on us from the beginning. If we're to be comfortable with our material, to know it well enough, to have rehearsed it so we know kind of what it sounds like, even maybe to have run it across somebody and said, hey, what do you think about this? He says in here that the Constitution guarantees free speech but doesn't guarantee listeners. Real true. He also says,
I'm sorry, because the Constitution, okay. So how many articles are there in the Constitution?
14.
I forgot.
Is that a
I'm gonna be
minute?
honest. I forgot.
No.
So I said that because
14, I think.
no, it's like 5 or 8 or...
Well,
9.
yeah, no.
9?
articles,
Okay.
and then like 15 or so many amendments
Okay.
to. And so it was funny because she asked, because she said, "See, you guys don't know what you have. You don't know your own Constitution,
7
right? Because 7
articles.
articles. Because you should know that. You should know what your laws guarantee you, what rights it gives you. And if you don't know that, you know, so she was making that. And so when you said again that,
Right.
it reminded me of that.
That's good. That's good. This is true. Okay.
I'm gonna try to remember that.
Jeopardy question, right?
Yeah, put all that as a job.
Right.
Yeah, for the test, and that's it.
Exactly. So, and sometimes, like, people listen to our material just because of that, right? Just like because it's a test and I forget it as soon as. Some people have heard the expression, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it.
That's right.
You can't make it drink, right? But you can feed a horse salt and make him thirsty, right? And then, of course, what happened.
That's good. That's good.
Really?
Right, but that's what he means by saying it's our responsibility to keep them engaged, right? We don't want to have a cemetery communication where there's lots of people out there but nobody's listening. That's what he puts here in the paper. That's what he says on paper. And so he even talks about when he's writing books that he tries to ask the question, would you turn the next page? Would you turn the next page? And again, now think about this. Think about what kind of time it takes to spend in coming up and crafting the kind of message that you're going to articulate to people that connects with them well enough to get them not only to sit there and listen, but then to take notes, and then to go back and review it later, and then to begin to ask themselves, how can I improve and grow and build upon it? That's what you're really looking to do when we talk about creating an experience everyone enjoys and making it simple. The difficult work of taking your vision and turning it into bite-sized managed pieces. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But where do I know where to start? I mean, are you going to start at the tail, and you going to start at the trunk, and you going to, I mean, y'all like, none of that. My point being, though, bringing it simple, getting us all together, starting at the same place. That's the work. Okay, so communication in their world. Communication in their world. That's number 2. Communication in their world. People don't remember what we think is important. They remember what they think is important. People don't remember what we think is important. They remember what they think is important. So that's really important, right? One of the things that you can always do is engage your audience afterwards in like piece by piece. Hey, what'd you think of that? What'd you learn? What'd you get? And if they're saying stuff that wasn't your point, you might not have points, right? Because people should remember you. But 2, see what they connected with, because that's going to tell you their heart. That's going to tell you what inspired them. And you may be able to craft your next message around those things so as to get better engagement from your audience. A story that he puts in here is about a man whose obsession was with baseball, and he was out to dinner with his wife and the new baby. And the wife says, look, here, you change the baby. And the husband says, I don't know how to change the baby. And he tries to get her back the child. She says, look, Buster, you lay the diaper out like a diamond. You put second base on home plate. You put the baby's bottom on the pitcher's mound. You hook up first and third and slide home underneath. And if it starts to rain, the game ain't called. You start all over again. She spoke his language. She went into his world. She figured out what he was passionate about and communicated it effectively.
Absolutely.
All right, that's our responsibility. That's our responsibility. You own that piece when you're in that leadership role. All right, number 3, capture people's attention from the start. Capture people's attention from the start. It has been said that today's modern millennial has the attention span of about 7 seconds, that is, or 5 seconds. It's also been said that a goldfish's attention span is 7 seconds.
That's saying.
I want you to know. Alright, so if you have not gotten their attention,
You don't have much time to get it, do
do
you?
not be mad when you look out there and everybody is looking at their phone. Exactly. And it happens so quick. So quick. It is funny. Myrna Marofsky says people have a remote control in their heads today. If you don't catch their interest, they just click you off. Amen. Oh man. A couple of things that he gives in terms of capturing people's attention. So start with a comment about the situation or setting. Start with the comment about the situation or setting. Something that is off. Man, it sure is awfully hot in here. Woo, man, glad it's not hell. You know, something that catches their attention. Oh, whoa, wow. Didn't expect him to say that right there. Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself. John Maxwell likes to come up and say, hi, my name is John. What's yours? All right? And then somebody's probably going to say it back, or 2 or 3 people. But introduce yourself. Make it comfortable. Get them into what it is that we're talking about. Relax. Relax. Some people are so tense. Like you can just see it. Hi. Yes, hi. Super excited. I'm super excited. Relax. Breathe. Move away from the podium. Come around and sit down and just have the conversation. All right, we talked about this already. Begin with humor. Have a joke. Have something. I remember we were getting ready to go off and do some training, And at this training location, it was just a huge group of us, and we were waiting there, and you can just feel like kind of the nervousness in the air, because everybody's just kind of unsure of what's going to happen next. And the senior ranking guy gets out there in front of us, and he just starts telling jokes. And he's 10 minutes solid of just, I mean, good, just, that's an Army joke, so none of them we're going to put on the camera or anything like that, but just a solid 10 minutes that just had us bawling laughing. Just have a joke. You know, there's all kinds of books out there that you can get jokes. You can get the joke of the day, the comic of the day, all kinds of, why? Why is that important? You're a leader. You're a leader. It's your responsibility to engage with your people. Begin with some humor. Create a sense of anticipation. Create a sense of anticipation. Hey, look at your neighbor and tell them you're about to learn something. You're about to learn something. Exactly. And then at the end, ask them. Ask your neighbor, did they learn something? And then go ahead and say, yes, you did. Yes, you did. Right? You want to engage your audience. You want to be a part of it. You want them informed with what it is that you're talking about. You can also get people moving. You can also get them to stand up and walk around. Reach out and touch somebody. I listen to a lot of T.D. Jakes' sermons. You'll hear him say stuff like, slap your neighbor, right? And tell them it's going to be okay. You might think there's nowhere in the world that you could say that, right? I mean, this man with a church, 50,000 people, he said just about every other Sunday. Go and slap your neighbor and tell them Jesus loves you. Right? Or stand up when we pray, when we read, all kinds of, you are limited by nothing more than the confidence with which you project it. Because you're the leader.
Your creativity.
And if you project it, your people will do. They will jump up and they'll be excited, and then hey, this is what we do here when you come here. He likes to say, this is T.D. Jakes, when they have everybody stand for the word, no, they're not leaving, y'all. I know if you're new here to the Potter's house, no, we're not leaving. So don't get excited. We're just standing for the word. Hallelujah. Go on and join us. So activate your audience, get them moving around, get them asking questions, get them thinking, and that'll keep their interest. Okay, say it so it sticks. Say it so it sticks. Number 4, say it so it sticks. He says, all great communication has one thing in common. The speaker said something the people remembered after the talks were finished. So here's some examples. Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death. Nathan Hale, I regret that I have but one life to give to my country. Abraham Lincoln, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Winston Churchill, never, he said it 3 times, give up. John F. Kennedy, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. Martin Luther King Jr., I have a dream. Ronald Reagan, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. You want people to remember that key point. You want people to have something that they take away from it. You want people to connect with what it is you said. That will not happen if you don't spend some time thinking about what it is. And you don't have to necessarily be original. You can pull other people's stuff. There was a march in Washington, I think it was last year, and there was a little girl, and she gave a speech, and she started like every line with, I have a dream. I have a dream. Also, all she did was pull the same thing that Dr. King had done, but then she just made it for today. And so you can do those kinds of things. You can connect the history and the weight of what somebody has said before with your ideas in order to excite people, to provide that hope, to provide that inspiration that we talked about earlier. But that's difficult work made simple. It's difficult work made simple. And it's our responsibility. We get here to the letter to the speaker. The letter to the speaker. Dear speaker, the world has never gotten over its liking of the truth. I've been a member of a church now for more than 50 years. We must have had 20 pastors or more. I don't know for sure. None of them stayed very long. Every one of them told the truth. In fact, they could bore you for hours on end. There was only one out of the whole bunch we ever really wanted to keep. He told the truth interestingly. One time he put on his bathrobe and played like he was King David. Sure was interesting. Another time he played like he was the innkeeper in Bethlehem. Then one time he smeared his face with soup, sure looked strange, and told us he was Job. We all knew better, and he knew we did, but I never really understood the book of Job till that sermon. One time he dressed up in a white robe and came in the back of an auditorium carrying a sign. He told us he was an archangel. He seemed so convinced we believed him. Darndest thing, he didn't do near anything to keep our attention. He always did. Big church down in Chattanooga hired him away from us. The good ones always seem to get away. They arrested a man over in Greenville the other day. They threw him in jail. He was walking around town in a white robe carrying a sign that said, "The world is coming to an end." I don't know why they arrested him. Most everybody believed he was right. As I saw it, he was telling the truth interesting. Last week, my preacher preached on that very thing. The way he told the same truth wasn't all that interesting. They might have locked up the wrong man. It sure seems important to me to tell the truth interestingly. Not too many people do it. A bunch of us who listen to your sermons are wishing you'd do it. You might try the white robe and sign routine. Just don't go outside. Sincerely, your audience. Sincerely, your audience. We have to, as leaders, take into consideration the way in which the people we serve are. Visually, audio visually, kinetically touching, the ability to touch it via sound. What is the way that you learn? What is all those things can be appropriately used. A good speaker, a good vision caster will, some way, form, or fashion, find a way to build in every single way of the senses are used. Right? I will describe it in a way that if you are a person who learns or who remembers via the way you listen to things, that you will be able to hear what it is that I'm talking about. Let freedom ring, right, is a concept, but I hear it, right? Draw a picture of the sunset, like the colors of orange and blue as they glisten off the glass. The whole idea is me drawing something that you can see, that you can visualize. Imagine the feel of your hand over the wood. Imagine the feel of the sand under your feet. Imagine the feel of the sun kissing your skin. Imagine the feel of the breeze in your hair. Right? And I begin with my words to touch you in whatever way. Now, I'm not going to do that off rip without a lot of practice. But when I will do the difficult work of practicing, when I will do the difficult work of accepting the responsibility of getting my audience to be engaged, then my audience will be engaged. My vision will be remembered. My people will be inspired. They will be touched. They'll be able to remember what I said and share that with their friends who will be excited and want to come also. Key concept, work to create the right experience for your communication setting. Work to create the right experience for your communication setting. A lot of the people who are great speakers say that they will get to wherever they're going to do their training at or their speaking at early and just kind of walk around and get a feel for the environment. What are the sight lines like? What are the places to be? Then get up there on the stage and kind of walk it and see. Maybe get an audio test so you can see how does it sound, how does it work. That's the early work. That's the I'm going to make sure my experience is exactly what it needs to be. If it's not good, hey, listen, is it possible to get this turned up? Can we get this sound? Can we move this here? Can we work there? Can I move these chairs? Organize it however you want. I want to bring everybody close. I feel like I'm so disconnected. I need to bring the people closer. That's your responsibility. So then, of course, the question, how much time do I intentionally set aside to create enjoyable experiences for others? How much time do I intentionally set aside to create an enjoyable experience for others? It would be so interesting if you walked into a meeting where you knew you were going to go again, everybody's going to sit around the circle and only one person's going to talk. And then there's the person who was, usually the one who's like the only person talking, like, hey, I don't have anything to say today, but as you see, there's some crayons in front of you and there's some paper, and today we're going to do something different. You'd immediately be engaged. You'd be like, wait, what? You got crayons and paper, and you're not going to talk. Don't be afraid to do different things.
That's one of the things I really work on when we come to our women's meeting. I try to come with something different each time, whether, I may have the seats one way or this way or something, to engage, to come. And I like to be prepared. I try to come during the day so that I know many times while I might say I'm going to be early, but if I go to pick somebody up, they may not be ready. So then my time now is pressed and I'm just getting here. But when I come in, I want things set up for an evening that can be smooth or engaging or whatever we can do, so now I don't have to set up and now I'm not running around trying to get ready because I'm just coming through the door at exactly that time. Because I know that happens, but especially, when you're doing that kind of thing. So, just trying to take that time for prayer and to set the atmosphere and to know how I want things to go, even though you don't always go that way, but it don't, because there wasn't help for me.
Right.
I think it's so important.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Okay. So these are responsibilities, y'all, as leaders of being connectors, not just communicators, right? We want to be the very best connectors that we can possibly be. Remember that we are working with potentially small groups now, but that's preparation for the big groups. So this is time for you to refine your techniques. It's time for you to refine. You don't know when you might just be called on randomly and told, hey, are you up? Hey, you ready? But if you have a little humor, maybe keep a joke on the side, right? Jesus, a rabbi, and a priest walked into a bar, right? And immediately everybody's like, hold on, what? I don't know how that joke ends because I didn't finish it. Clearly, you will go ahead and have it on standby, right? Now, all of a sudden, you got your audience laugh. So now you relax. Hey, go to work. Share. What's the common themes? What are the things that somebody asks you offhand that you could share, you could give them, you would be ready for it. Have those things now while you're working in your small groups, so that when you're in charge of big groups, you'll be able to communicate, and most importantly, get connected. Good stuff? All right, well, that's everything that I got for you. I'll give yourselves an applause. You're awesome. All right, and we're going to go ahead and close this out with a word of prayer tonight. All right, let's pray. Lord, we just thank you for this day, this time. Thank you for just the opportunity to learn more about you, about connecting, God, about communicating, about creating atmospheres, Lord God, about setting expectations, about engaging our audiences, about simplifying the complex, that we might deliver it in ways that touch people's hearts and inspire them and motivate them and help them. Lord, we thank you that you've called us. And we thank you for just the work that we're putting in, the seeds that are being planted, the soil that's being worked, and we thank you for the increase. We thank you for the huge groups and the huge organizations and huge things that we're going to have the opportunity to lead. And we thank you for just preparing us for it through our faithfulness in this time. Thank you for everybody listening to this online, God, that you would inspire them and that you give them creativity and vision and wisdom, and that they would just use it to rise to the next level. And we're excited about what you're doing in this time, in this place. Give us safe travel mercies as we go home. Bring us back again, we pray, in your time. In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.